What's up, you guys? Titty Striker here. And after UFC 300, I thought to myself, like, what would have happened if Charles Oliveira fought Islam Makhachev in October at UFC 294? Because now we've seen what I think is potentially the butterfly effect in MMA or in the UFC. Because if Oliveira didn't get that cut, and if he actually fought Islam Makhachev in October, maybe Volkanovski probably wouldn't have got knocked out by Ilia Topuria, and maybe he would have, beat him. And, if Islam Makhachev, beat Charles Oliveira relatively easily, he could have turned around and maybe fought in February or March. Maybe the O'Malley and Chito fight would have been, moved to February, and then Islam would come back in March to fight Justin Gaethje. So it's crazy how all that could have happened, but it didn't. And if you don't know what the butterfly effect is, I think it was thought of by this one guy. I forgot his name, but he was saying that just like a butterfly flying in one spot will result in a tornado being created somewhere else. And this led to a series of thoughts about how a small action can lead to a crazy circumstance, or just a bigger action. A small action results in a bigger action, and it's in a connected fashion. And I feel like the butterfly effect in this case was Charles Oliveira getting caught 9 days before his schedule with Islam Makhachev at UFC 294, which then leads to the UFC thinking, okay, we lost a big fight and we need another big fight, which is why I don't think that they called up Mateusz Gamrot. Because whenever they have a big title fight or any big fight on a pay-per-view, they have some backup fighters. Or actually any fight in general, any main event type fight. Yeah, they were supposed to have a backup fighter. And that backup fighter was supposed to be Mateusz Gamrot, who was ranked maybe number 6 or 7. And in my opinion, the real backup fighter should have been Justin Gaethje, because Gaethje, he had just knocked out Dustin Poirier. The two number one contenders were clearly Oliveira and Gaethje. So I think that, if Oliveira doesn't step up or if he gets injured, call up Justin Gaethje. Tell him, prepare for this fight. If Islam or Oliveira pull out, you're stepping up and you're fighting. And I can't remember why they didn't pick Gaethje as a backup fighter. I think maybe Gaethje just didn't want to fight in Abu Dhabi or something like that. I don't know, but it was very odd. I thought that he should have been the backup fighter, because he would have gotten his title shot if everything had happened, would have happened. And yeah, he would have gotten his title shot against Islam while preparing on the side, and he would have still gotten paid too, just for preparing, even if Oliveira didn't get cut. And he would have been the next in line, because as we've seen with Colby Covington, when the UFC calls you up to, be a backup fighter, if you take it up, you make the weight and everything, you're next in line for the title shot. But Gaethje wasn't the backup fighter, and instead of the backup fighter being called, the UFC called up Alexander Volkanovski, who at the time, he was supposed to fight Ilia Topuria in January. That was the plan. The UFC broke their own rules, and they were like, never mind that, we need a big fight. So they called up Volk instead of calling Mateusz Gamrot. And the result of that fight was Islam Makhachev winning in brutal fashion with a head kick KO. And yeah, that was expected. That was what was supposed to happen, because Islam, he was prepared. They had a fight before that was competitive, but Islam won. And Volkanovski, he wasn't prepared. He had to cut 13 kilos in 9 days or so. And that was very tough. And obviously he wasn't in the shape that Islam Makhachev was, or the shape that he was in their last fight. But then as soon as, that fight is done, the UFC is okay, we're going to run it back with Oliveira and Islam. We're going to rebook that fight. And then, Gaethje was okay, since they're going to do that, I'm actually going to fight Max Holloway. And actually, I think the reason why he wasn't the backup fighter, I'm kind of remembering now, I think it was because there was talks of him fighting Justin Gaethje, because he didn't really want to wait. But yeah, and I think that the talks with Justin Gaethje were reinforced by the fact that the UFC were saying, by the fact that Oliveira pulled out, Volk stepped in, and then the UFC was probably thinking of running it back with Makhachev and Oliveira. And there was rumors of Makhachev versus Oliveira in January, and Gaethje probably saw that, and he was like, okay, you know what? This is going to take some time. I'm going to fight Max Holloway because Makhachev only fights twice a year. So he's going to fight early, and then he's going to fight in October. So I'm going to get him in October. But I want to stay active, so I'm going to take on Max Holloway. And the Oliveira and Makhachev 2 rematch never happened because Oliveira, he didn't want to fight in January. I forget what happened. It was just rumors. It was supposed to be in Toronto. It was Strickland versus Duplessis instead. And then Gaethje versus Holloway is like confirmed for UFC 300. And then after that, we get the news that Islam Makhachev is actually taking on Arman Tsarukyan at UFC 300. So then it's like, well, okay, like Justin Gaethje has to win this fight, or else he's not getting his title shot, because he could have had it in October. That didn't happen. And Oliveira could have had it in January. That still didn't happen. So now the pressure is even more on Gaethje, because he not only has to win, but he has to put a better performance in the winner of the Arman Tsarukyan and Charles Oliveira fight. But Justin Gaethje gets dominated by Max Holloway, and then he ends up getting knocked out by Max Holloway, and he loses his title shot. And the guy that he had knocked out in order to secure his title shot, Dustin Poirier, gets a title shot. And now Gaethje's probably never going to be the same, because that knockout was really bad. He's never been slept like that. And he relies a lot on his ability to, take shots and then hit his opponent's back. But now he's been like really starched on the feet. Is that going to make him gun shy? Is his chin going to be the same? How's he going to look after this? And it's very tough for Justin Gaethje. But then following UFC 294, Alex Volk, he decides to fight Ilia Topuria in February. He got knocked out in October. So this is about 4 months after he got knocked out cold by Islam Makhachev. He's now going to fight against a knockout puncher, Ilia Topuria, who's been preparing for Volk since June of 2023, because he knew he was next for the title. He knew this whole time, so he was preparing for Volkanovski. And come fight night, Ilia starches Volk, and this is really bad for Volk. He got knocked out twice within the span of 4 months. He's going to have to take a year off, and that's a year off his prime that he doesn't, that's going to be wasted, while Ilia Topuria is going to be getting better. He's going to be fighting Max Holloway. And yeah, that ends his championship reign. And yeah, it's just crazy to think that all this happened potentially because of a cut that Charles Oliveira got. And this is not to blame Oliveira. It wasn't his fault. I mean, he could have, maybe not sparred as hard like the week before his fight, but it is, or at least wear headgear to, protect yourself. But it is what it is. But yeah, it's crazy because I don't think that Justin Gaethje is going to be getting a title shot anytime soon. And I don't think he'll be the same after that knockout either. And for Volkanovski, it's going to be tough to say, but I don't think he'll be the same either after that KO. And I don't think he's going to get his belt back. It's tough, but it's crazy to think that this small action leads to such large consequences. It's really crazy to think about.